City set to roll out buses of counselors and peacekeepers. What is this, Iraq? To ease tensions in communities following acts of violence. These, quote, mobile trauma units slated to cost $1.8 million to launch and even more to sustain. So, will it work to keep people safe? I thought this city was safe. NYPD Sergeant and founder of Blue Lives Matter, New York's own Joey Imperatrice joins us now. Joey, good idea?
No, I don't think so. Well, we talked about this 2 seconds ago. And $1.8 million to roll it out, $875,000 of hardworking New York City taxpayer money every single year. These buses, for people that don't know, they're about the size of New York blood drive. They're not little buses, so the upkeep on them is very expensive. Number two is they want to put them in high violence areas. Now, what happens with the police officers? If somebody goes in there, they're going to look like a snitch. If somebody reports a crime, what's it going to go from there?
So you're saying if a peacekeeper goes in there and says, okay, the Johnson family is giving me a problem, how are they ever going to function in that neighborhood again? And if they don't, what good are they?
Well, in law enforcement, there's all different kind of equipment they use, and there's sky watches, and all the time there's shootings that happen, and crime still goes on. No one cares. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So what are you going to do, move these buses around the block every time something happens? It's not practical.
See, Joe, what I understand is we keep seeing these stats that show crime is at record low in New York City.
Well, if I'm correct, all over the media, it was 20 people shot on July 4th. Violence, in my opinion, is up. That's not a good thing. And one of the reasons I believe is because they're not allowing officers to do their job, whether it's stop, question, and frisk, or all this stuff with the NCO programs and the community policing is great, but officers still need to go out there, and there's still guns on the street. We need to save lives.
All right, so we have peacekeepers and trauma counselors getting in between cops and criminals, or would-be criminals. The mayor's office says this: to prevent gun violence on a program on this mission, says, the scene of a violent crime is often chaotic, but what is not immediately visible is the trauma experienced by those impacted. This service aims to address the trauma, providing on-site help, linking people to services, and dispatching outreach workers to prevent retaliation. So, if you're arresting somebody and there's a family member there watching a loved one being arrested, maybe those counselors could play a positive role. But for the actually arrestee, the last thing you need is a therapist.
Well, one thing I thought about is when I read there's people with criminal histories or recovering drug addicts, and those people can relate to the people in the community. I understand that. But in this setting, I don't think it's correct. I think if people are down at central booking and they want to change their lives around, being like guidance counselors in that sense makes sense. If you have a building where people can go on their own and it's not shoved down their throat, setting up a big vehicle on that corner in their communities, I think it would work. But this setting, I just don't think it's practical.
Why would they do this without consulting the NYPD?
That I don't know, and I can't speak on behalf of the police department, but it should be out there, and I think we should have at least had our opinion set on what we think about it.
If you are hiring therapists, a good therapist would say, by the way, we have to get buy-in from law enforcement, and they have to either understand and weigh in and provide some insight, and you got to get them interested. Now there's no buy-in.
Well, if you notice, there's certain politicians that go in front of a podium and they think they know how to do a law enforcement job, and I think that's a big problem with the city.
So it ticks you off?
A little bit. It annoys me a little bit.
We'll see how it works.